Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about a silent financial killer that most of us don't even realize is happening. It's the small, seemingly harmless purchases we make every day. You know what I'm talking about, that morning coffee, the fancy lunch you grabbed because you were too busy to pack one, or that subscription service you signed up for ages ago and totally forgot about. Individually, they seem like nothing, right? Just a few dollars here and there. But what if I told you that these tiny expenses could be costing you a fortune? We're talking thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars over time. This phenomenon is often called the latte factor, and today, we're going to expose it, break it down, and most importantly, I am going to show you how to take back control of your money without feeling like you're re-sacrificing everything you enjoy. So, what exactly is the latte factor? The term was popularized by the financial author David Batch. The idea is simple. The small, regular amounts of money you spend on non-essential items can add up to a significant sum when you look at the bigger picture. Let's do some quick math. Say you buy a $5 coffee every workday. That's $25 a week. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? But that's $100 a month. Over a year, that's $1,200. Now, let's stretch that out over a 10-year career. That's $12,000, and this is just the coffee. We haven't even factored in the occasional $5 pastry, the $15 lunch delivery, or that $10 month streaming service you barely watch. When you start adding these things up, the numbers can be genuinely shocking. Let's build a more realistic scenario. Maybe it's a $5 coffee 3 times a week, a $15 lunch twice a week, and a couple of $10 subscriptions. That's $15 for coffee, $30 for lunch, and 24 subscriptions. That comes out to $65 a week. Multiply that by 52 weeks, and you're looking at $3,380 a year. That's enough for a pretty nice vacation, a solid contribution to an emergency fund, or a significant investment. Over a decade, that's nearly $34,000. And here's the real kicker. If you had invested that money instead, say in a simple index fund with an average annual return of 8%, that $34,000 could have grown to over $50,000. That's the power of compound interest working its magic. Suddenly, that daily coffee doesn't seem so harmless anymore, does it? It represents a huge missed opportunity. The scary part is how easily this happens. These are comfort purchases. They're emotional. You've had a long morning, so you tell yourself, I deserve this latte. You're stressed about a deadline, so ordering in seems like the only manageable option. These decisions are made in the moment, driven by convenience and immediate gratification. Our brains are literally wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and spending a few dollars for a quick mood boost is an easy win. The long-term financial consequences are abstract and far away, so we don't feel the immediate pain of that future loss. Marketers know this. They design entire experiences around making small purchases feel special and effortless. Think about the cozy atmosphere of a coffee shop or the seamless one-click ordering on a food delivery app. It's all designed to get you to spend without thinking. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This is not about feeling guilty or depriving yourself of all joy. Life is meant to be enjoyed. The goal isn't to live like a monk and cut out every single thing that makes you happy. That's not sustainable, and it will just lead to burnout. The goal is to become conscious and intentional with your spending. It's about understanding the trade-offs. Is this specific $5 purchase more valuable to you right now than the future freedom and opportunities that money could provide? Sometimes, the answer might be yes. And that's okay. The problem arises when we make these decisions on autopilot, without ever stopping to ask the question. It's about shifting from mindless consumption to mindful spending. You're the CEO of your own finances, and it's time to start making executive decisions. So, how do we fight back against the latte factor? How do we reclaim our financial future? The first step is always awareness. You can't change what you don't measure. For 1 month, I challenge you to track every single penny you spend. Yes, every penny. You can use a notebook, a spreadsheet, or one of the many great budgeting apps out there. Don't judge yourself. Just record the data. At the end of the month, sit down and categorize your spending. Food, transport, housing, entertainment, and a special category for all those small miscellaneous purchases. This is your latte factor category. When you see the total, it might be a bit of a shock, but that's good. That shock is the motivation you need to make a change. Once you have the data, the next step is to create a plan. This is where you get intentional. Look at your latte factor spending and ask yourself, what can I reduce or eliminate without feeling miserable? Maybe you don't need to cut out coffee entirely. What if you made coffee at home on workdays and treated yourself to a cafe coffee only on the weekend? You still get the treat, but you've just cut your spending on it by more than half. Instead of ordering lunch twice a week, could you try meal prepping on Sunday? Just preparing 2 extra portions of your dinner can save you $30 and a lot of time during the week. Go through your bank statements and look for recurring subscriptions. Are you really using that gym membership, that streaming service, or that premium app? Be ruthless. If it's not adding significant value to your life, cancel it. That's pure, passive savings every single month. The key is to find substitutes that are cheaper or free but still give you a similar sense of satisfaction. If you buy coffee for the ritual and the break from work, try brewing a fancy tea at your desk or taking a short walk outside instead. If you order food for convenience, spend an hour on the weekend prepping simple grab-and-go lunches and snacks. The goal is to replace an expensive habit with a less expensive one. This is much more effective than just trying to use willpower to stop. You're not just removing something, you're replacing it with a better system. This is about building sustainable habits that will serve you for years to come, not just for a few weeks of painful austerity. Now, here's the most important part of the entire process, the part that makes it all worthwhile. Once you've identified where you can cut back, you need to automate your savings. This is non-negotiable. The moment you get paid, set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to a separate savings or investment account. The amount you transfer should be the money you found by cutting back on your latte factor expenses. If you figured out you can save $200 a month, that $200 needs to leave your main account immediately. Why? Because if it stays there, you will spend it. It's human nature that money will get absorbed by other small, mindless purchases. By paying yourself first and moving the money out of sight, you remove the temptation. Out of sight, out of mind. This is how you lock in your progress and actually start building wealth. Imagine redirecting that $3,000 a year from coffees and lunches into an investment account. After just 5 years, with an 8% return, you'd have over $18,000. In 10 years, that's over $50,000. In 20 years, it's over $160,000. That's the down payment on a house, a child's college education, or the freedom to retire early. All from being more mindful about a few small purchases each day. It's an incredibly powerful concept once you truly grasp it. This isn't about giving up your lattes, it's about what you're getting in return. You're trading a fleeting moment of satisfaction for long-term financial security and freedom. It's a trade that is always worth making. So let's recap the action plan. Step 1. Track your spending for 1 month to identify your personal latte factor. Step 2. Analyze your spending and create an intentional plan. Find sustainable substitutes for your expensive habits instead of just depriving yourself. Be ruthless with unused subscriptions. Step 3. Automate your savings. Set up an automatic transfer to move your newfound savings into a separate account the moment you get paid. This is the step that turns your good intentions into actual wealth. Remember, the goal is not to eliminate all joy from your life. It's to align your spending with your values and your long-term goals. It's about making conscious choices that empower you, rather than letting mindless habits control your financial destiny. You have the power to change your financial future, and it starts today. It starts with the next small purchasing decision you make. So I challenge you, take that first step. Start tracking your spending. You might be amazed at what you discover. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more content on building a better financial future. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What's your latte factor weakness? Let's share and support each other. Until next time, take control and spend wisely. If you don't control lifestyle inflation early, it will quietly control your entire financial life. And here's the line I want you to remember. If your lifestyle grows as fast as your income, you'll always feel rich for a moment and broke forever. Now let us take that same $500 we just talked about and look at it from a different angle, not as spending, but as lost opportunity. Most people see $500 a month and think, that's not life-changing. It won't buy you a mansion. It won't retire you tomorrow. It feels small in the context of a modern income. But money doesn't become powerful because it's large. It becomes powerful because it compounds. And compounding is not dramatic. It's quiet. It's patient. It's almost boring in the beginning, which is exactly why so few people respect it. Let's do the math slowly. $500 a month is $6,000 a year. That alone doesn't sound extraordinary, but if that $6,000 is invested consistently, not speculated, not gambled, not chased, simply invested in productive assets that earn a reasonable long-term return, something remarkable happens. At a 10% annual return, which historically has been achievable over long periods in productive markets, that $500 a month, invested for 30 years, doesn't become $180,000. It becomes over $1 million. Now pause there. That means the real cost of that $500 monthly leak is not $6,000 a year. It's 7 figures over time. This is where most people misunderstand wealth. They focus on income. They chase higher salaries, better bonuses, new side hustles. There's nothing wrong with earning more, but income alone doesn't create wealth. Ownership does. Compounding does. Time does. The tragedy is not that people spend $500. The tragedy is that they never see what it could have become. When you interrupt compounding, you don't just lose the principal. You lose the decades of growth that principal would have produced. Think of it like planting a tree. If you never plant it, you don't just lose the seed. You lose the shade it would have provided for decades. The difference between someone who retires comfortably and someone who struggles often isn't brilliance. It's whether they allowed compounding to work uninterrupted. IV often said that the first rule of building wealth is simple. Don't interrupt compounding unnecessarily. Every dollar you keep invested is an employee. It works 24 hours a day. It doesn't call in sick. It doesn't complain. And if you leave it alone, it hires more employees. But when you spend that dollar on consumption, it retires permanently. Now let's connect this to something deeper. When you spend $500 today, you're making a decision between present comfort and future freedom. And that decision compounds just like money does. The person who consistently chooses small present comfort over long-term ownership ends up financially dependent on their income forever. The person who consistently chooses ownership ends up financially independent of their income. That's the real comparison. Not rich versus broke in a flashy sense, but free versus obligated. You see, wealth isn't about luxury. It's about control over your time. If you invest that $500 every month for 20 or 30 years, you're not just building a portfolio. You're building options. Options to leave a job. Options to start a business. Options to help family. Options to weather a crisis without panic. Without compounding, every financial setback feels catastrophic. With compounding, setbacks become inconveniences. And here's the psychological trick that keeps people stuck. The early years feel slow. In the first 5 years, the growth looks unimpressive. It feels like nothing is happening. That's when most people quit. They think, this isn't moving the needle. But compounding is like pushing a snowball uphill. In the beginning, it barely grows. Then gradually, it becomes massive. The last 10 years of a 30-year compounding period often produce more growth than the first 20 combined. The person who understands that stays patient. The person who doesn't keeps restarting from zero. And restarting is expensive. Let's go back to the $500 leak. It's not just about stopping spending, it's about redirecting it. If you plug that leak and automate that same $500 into investments before you ever see it, you've reversed the direction of your financial life. Instead of money disappearing into consumption, it disappears into ownership. One direction builds pressure, the other builds power. Most people dramatically underestimate how close they already are to building real wealth. They think they need a massive breakthrough, a big inheritance, a lottery win, a revolutionary business idea. But often, they're just one disciplined decision away from starting a compounding engine that runs for decades. $500 a month is not flashy. It won't impress anyone at dinner. It won't show up on social media. But over time, it quietly separates two very different financial futures. One future works for money forever. The other lets money work for them. And the only difference is whether that $500 was consumed or compounded. Here's the line I want you to remember. The real price of $500 a month. I spent $500. It's the fortune you never gave time to build. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable than math. Because the real reason that $500 disappears every month usually isn't ignorance. It isn't a lack of intelligence. It isn't even a lack of income. It's emotion. Money is rarely spent logically. It's spent emotionally and then justified logically afterward. When people say, I don't know where my money goes, what they often mean is, I don't know why I felt the need to spend it. Stress is one of the biggest triggers. You've had a long day. You're tired. You feel underappreciated. Cooking feels exhausting. So you order delivery. It's convenient. It feels like relief. It feels like you're buying back your energy. But what you're actually buying is temporary comfort at the cost of long-term progress. Boredom is another powerful trigger. A quiet evening turns into scrolling. Scrolling turns into comparison. Comparison turns into dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction turns into a purchase. A new gadget, a new outfit, a limited time offer, an upgrade you didn't plan for. The purchase provides a brief spike of excitement, a little dopamine hit. For a moment, you feel productive, upgraded, improved. Then it fades. And the monthly statement remains. Here's something most people don't talk about. Spending is often emotional regulation disguised as lifestyle. When someone feels anxious about their career, they upgrade their car to feel successful. When someone feels behind in life, they spend to feel caught up. When someone feels invisible, they spend to feel seen. The problem isn't the transaction. The problem is the unexamined emotion behind it. If you don't understand your emotional triggers, you will always leak money, no matter how much you earn. I've seen people double their income and still struggle financially, because their emotional patterns didn't change. More income simply gave them more room to act on impulse. There's also social pressure, a powerful force that quietly shapes spending decisions. We live in a world where lifestyle is constantly displayed. Everyone's vacation is photographed. Every purchase is announced. Every milestone is showcased. And even if you tell yourself you're immune, the comparison happens subconsciously. You begin to equate visible consumption with success. But wealth is not visible consumption. In fact, the people who look the richest are often the most financially fragile, and the people who are truly wealthy often look surprisingly ordinary. Emotional spending thrives on this confusion. You see someone upgrade their home, and you feel the subtle urge to upgrade yours. You see friends dining out more frequently, and suddenly staying in feels like falling behind. You hear phrases like, "You deserve it," and they feel reasonable. And sometimes they are. But when "I deserve it" becomes a monthly habit, it quietly erodes your future. Deserving something does not automatically mean it's wise to purchase it. One of the most powerful financial advantages you can develop is the ability to pause between emotion and action. Most people react. Wealth builders design systems. Reacting is easy. It requires no discipline. It feels natural. Designing systems requires intention. For example, instead of trusting willpower, you create rules. A 24-hour rule before any non-essential purchase. A spending cap for discretionary categories. Automated investing that happens before you can touch the money. Systems protect you from your emotional self because here's the truth: you will never eliminate emotion from money decisions. You're human, but you can prevent emotions from controlling the outcome. Let me share an observation. The people who struggle financially often chase feelings with money. The people who build wealth separate feelings from money. They don't shop when stressed. They don't upgrade to impress. They don't buy to soothe boredom. They recognize the emotion, but they don't finance it. And when you stop financing your emotions, something surprising happens. You start addressing them directly. Instead of ordering food because you're exhausted, you fix your schedule. Instead of buying something because you feel behind, you improve your skills. Instead of upgrading your lifestyle to feel successful, you build assets that quietly make you successful. That shift is powerful, because the real goal isn't just to stop spending. It's to stop using spending as therapy. Once you identify your triggers, you gain control. You start to see patterns. You notice that every stressful week leads to higher spending. You notice that boredom leads to online shopping. You notice that social events trigger comparison purchases. Awareness alone can dramatically reduce the leak. And when you combine awareness with systems, the emotional leak begins to close. Remember, this entire discussion about the $500 monthly leak isn't just about numbers. It's about behavior. If you don't master the emotional side of money, no raise will ever be enough. Because income solves math problems. Discipline solves behavior problems. And behavior is what determines whether money compounds or disappears. Here's the line I want you to remember: if you daren't control your emotions, they will quietly control your money. Now, after everything we've talked about, the silent subscriptions, the compounding opportunity cost, the emotional triggers, you might be thinking this sounds overwhelming. It isn't. In fact, stopping the $500 monthly leak does not require brilliance. It requires clarity and a few deliberate actions. Most financial problems feel complicated because people try to solve them with complexity. New strategies, new apps, new side hustles, but plugging a leak is usually simpler than building a new income stream. You don't need a breakthrough, you need an audit. Start with this. Look at your last 90 days of spending. Not your budget, not what you planned to spend, what you actually spent. There's a big difference. When you review 3 months instead of 1, patterns become obvious. You'll see recurring charges you forgot about. You'll see habits that didn't feel frequent but add up quickly. You'll see categories that consistently exceed what you thought was reasonable. This exercise isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Money behaves differently when you pay attention to it. Once you see the numbers clearly, the next step is simple. Eliminate 3 unnecessary recurring expenses immediately. Not someday, not after thinking about it for a week. Today. Cancel the subscription you rarely use. Downgrade the service you don't need at premium level. Remove the membership that sounded good in theory but doesn't add value in practice. You don't need to cancel everything. Just start with 3. The act of canceling sends a powerful signal to yourself. I control my money. Momentum matters. Small wins create confidence. Now here's the most important shift. Redirect the savings automatically. If you simply cut $200 or $300 from expenses and let that cash sit in your checking account, it will eventually disappear. Money that isn't assigned a purpose tends to find one. Instead, automate that amount into investments or savings the moment your paycheck arrives. Pay yourself first, not last, not if there's anything left. First, when money is invested before you see it, it no longer competes with lifestyle. It quietly builds ownership in the background. Remember what we discussed earlier: automation can either finance consumption or finance your future. Choose the direction intentionally. Another practical tool is what I call friction. In today's world, spending is frictionless. One-click purchases, stored cards, instant approvals. The easier it is to spend, the more you will. So add friction back into non-essential spending. Remove saved payment methods from online stores. Unsubscribe from promotional emails. Wait 24 hours before any non-essential purchase over a certain amount. That 24-hour rule is powerful. Most emotional purchases lose their urgency with time. What feels essential tonight often feels unnecessary tomorrow. You're not denying yourself. You're giving yourself space to think, and thinking is profitable. Let's connect this to something larger. When you plug a $500 monthly leak, you're not just improving cash flow, you're increasing flexibility. Flexibility reduces stress. Reduced stress improves decision-making. Better decisions improve long-term outcomes. It's all connected. Financial pressure often forces people into choices they wouldn't otherwise make. Staying in jobs they dislike, taking on unnecessary debt, accepting unfavorable terms because they lack breathing room. When you reduce fixed expenses and automate investing, you lower your break-even point. That means you need less income to survive comfortably. And when you need less, you control more. Control is the real objective. You don't build wealth to impress people, you build wealth to have options. Options to walk away, options to negotiate, options to take calculated risks. All of that begins with small, disciplined adjustments. Here's another mindset shift. Focus on fixed expenses first. Variable spending, like occasional dining out, matters. But fixed recurring expenses determine your long-term pressure. If you lower fixed obligations, every future raise becomes powerful instead of absorbed. If you don't, every raise disappears into lifestyle inflation. This is not about extreme frugality. It's about alignment. Spend generously on what genuinely improves your life. Be ruthless about what doesn't. If something doesn't bring sustained value, it doesn't deserve permanent space in your monthly expenses. Over time, these adjustments create something remarkable. Margin. Margin is the space between what you earn and what you need. Margin allows compounding to work. Margin absorbs unexpected expenses. Margin provides peace. And peace is underrated in financial discussions. When you know your expenses are intentional and your investments are automated, money becomes less emotional. It becomes strategic. You stop reacting and start designing. That's the transformation. Plugging the leak isn't dramatic. No one will applaud you for canceling a subscription. No one will celebrate that you waited 24 hours before buying something unnecessary. But 10, 20, 30 years from now, the results will be dramatic. Small monthly decisions, repeated consistently, create massive long-term differences. And it starts with a simple decision: take control. Here's the line I want you to remember. Wealth begins the moment you decide your money will follow a plan, not your impulses.